Right, well, I'm starting to get back to car things. This is my little Citroen Ami brake, or estate as we call it in England, or station wagon I guess in the United States and Canada. In Canada, where I just came back from. Beautiful time. Anyway, back to cars. So, this coming weekend I'm going on a little sort of run with lots of other cars, a sort of a rally or somewhere where they give us we don't really know where we're going actually. We get a route map when we get there. So I've decided to take this little Ami. It doesn't really get out enough, so it's going out. So I've just given it a clean. I just was checking that the lights are working and letting it run for a bit. I had it out the other day when I went to see Benix, but this is a little bit of a run for it. Right, so and just for somebody who might get a bit concerned, I don't drive with my fog lights on all the time. I just put them on. I was just checking that they worked. These are of course auxiliary lights. In fact, when this car was first registered in the UK, fog lights were not a requirement, but I fitted them retrospectively. Well, I think it's much safer. I mean, these little tiny lights are not much good anyway, and certainly if you're in foggy conditions, you really need these extra lights. Not that I particularly drive this car a lot. I would do in fog, but much more use. That's why I fitted also the high level light. Now, that obviously stop light in the middle, that isn't standard, but you know, I felt that it would be much better to have that, because I have actually had somebody went into the back of me once, and so I fitted that. And I've cleaned it up, and hopefully it'll have a nice time on the weekend. The inside is fairly clean, and a bit of a mark on the seat there. I don't know if it shows up in this video. That was when I actually spilled something on there. It was some PVA glue actually, which I managed to get off. It was a bit of a panic to get it off before it dried out, but it's left a bit of a mark, a shiny mark on there, on that plastic. The door's shut really nice on this car. Obviously I've had work done on it over the years, little bits of rust here and there. Not an awful lot, only tiny bits. I had Billy at Benix did the doors for me. The door sills he just did. They weren't rusty, they were just surface rust. So I've had that done, and bottoms of the doors, and there again they weren't rusty, they were just painted, come off and surface rust, so he did all that for me. But they shut really nice, and the car is really, really good. As you really don't see many of these on the road now. I think there just isn't many. And certainly, well, I guess probably the ones that are on the road are in good condition. But I don't think anyone who runs one of these isn't running it in good condition. I've seen a few photographs of one at some at shows, and there's a couple actually the same colours, I think. And this one was all beige when I bought it, but I had the dark brown roof put on, which kind of matched the inside, and I thought it just made the car look a bit better. I think it was a big improvement. It looked a little bit insipid, all in that sort of oatmeal colour. I like the side exhaust, and I comment sometimes because it seems to me that they did the side exhaust so that you didn't have fumes going in the car if you open up the tailgate, but of course you get them in the back door if you open the back door up. But anyway, Well, I was out in the Aventine earlier today, and one of the things I wanted to do, I went up to the Renault garage, and I wanted to get a new rear blade. This section here, that bit, the rubber had all gone rotten, and it was hanging down. So I was pretty anxious to get it, otherwise I was going to end up scratching my glass. And of course they don't make them anymore. Renault don't supply them. But I found this one at a aftermarket place, and this is an aftermarket one. But actually it's a Bosch, and it is the original one, and it has to be really too, because it's got that design that fits in with that. So that's fitted, so that's done. Pleased with that. But I had a bit of an upset. Really upset me actually with the Renault, and that is that I suddenly got a problem with the satellite navigation. Now, when I bought this car last year, everything worked on it, and I was really pleased about that, because I was told that a lot of things, you know, the electronics on these cars, things stopped working, and one of the main things was the CD player. Well, the CD player, which is down here, this bit, the bottom bit here, that works fine. And the Sat-nav worked, and I was pleased with that, because not everyone has a Sat-nav in it. I think they were probably optional, or maybe they came with this model, which was the, I think, this slightly higher model, as it were. But anyway, this had the Sat-nav, and it worked. Now, it's got a... the disc is in here for the unit, down in there, and that's on, and I can eject the disc. But the display, which comes on automatically every time you turn the car on, like this, has stopped coming on. Now, I just turn the radio down. So I've got no display. I've gone through the manual. There doesn't seem to be any way that you can turn the display off, which is something that I thought about when I first had the car. I thought, well, you know, what if you just don't want the display on? But there didn't seem to be any way of turning it on or off, so it was just like automatically comes on. But anyway, it's not working. So down here, all these controls here, they control the setting up of the destinations and everything for the GPS, for the sat navigation, or GPS as they call it in North America. But whatever you do, you push buttons, try everything, and nothing comes up on the display. So what have we got here? First of all, this display, this system is not unique to this particular model. It was used in a lot of Renault cars at the time, the Lagunas and various other cars. And I don't know how long, maybe it ran for quite a while, but it was there, I think, one of the first systems. I mean, this is 18, 19 years old, 17 years old, and it's a fairly basic, or not, well, it's an older sat-nav system, obviously, but it was, you know, I want to keep it obviously working. So I'm hoping that even if there is a problem and that I can source the part that's missing. Now, either the display is packed up, or the control unit down here has stopped. Perhaps there's a fuse gone. Perhaps the power from that supplies this has broken. And the reason I say that is because, look, it's inside this unit, this head here, which you move up and down. That means somewhere here there's a cable that is bending at some point. I'm guessing that it must be. So after all the years now, maybe that has finally broken the power lead. So to establish this, Andy is coming over sometime to have a look at it. If he can't do it himself, he says he has a friend who used to work for Renault, so that might give me a clue. So I'm hoping that somehow I'm going to get this fixed. I really hope I do, because I was really pleased that this car had a working original Sat-nav GPS system. No, it hasn't. Not at the moment, anyway. Right, so that's that. Right, well, the Ami's still sitting there, ticking over. We finished with the digger here, dug all the trenches, and that's being picked up tomorrow. Nice machine, that. Nice little toy. People like me, well, I'd love to have one of those to play with. Yeah, really nice. Right, so that cable there, which runs to a pole somewhere in the distance and then splits, and there's some more cable that runs off in that direction through my wood and through that direction through the wood. All of it, the whole lot, is coming down and will be run as one cable. There'll be a join down the other end of that wood, and it'll come in through here, down here, and over at that point I had to take a tree out because the electricity people claim they need to get to that fence over there, which is the boundary of my property, and they're going to put a pole up. So this cable will come in and come to where the pole is that they're going to put in, go up the pole there, and then carry on overhead to the next pole. But on my property, all the cable will now be underground. So, unfortunately, I had to take a tree out. Actually, we took two trees out in the end. I wasn't too happy, but the electricity company, being what they are, they have a big lorry they've got to get in here, and that's the only way they'll do it. So anyway, now we've got this trench that runs all through the woods and winds around and goes everywhere. And been digging this. And then once we have the cable laid, which I'm hoping will be next week, then I'm going to rent another digger, probably that same one again, and Tom will actually use it, and he'll backfill all this trench. But we're also going to lay a cable in to take some power down to the, because this goes right down to where the main gate is to come into the wood. So we'll then be able to have power down at the gate for lights, and I'm going to have somewhere on this stretch, I'm going to have an uptake for a power point, so I can have power in the wood somewhere. So that's quite interesting. So we've laid all these scrapings down on this road, and they've been packed down a bit, raked off and packed down, and we ran the digger over it with the weight of it, and that sort of flattened it a bit. But the next stage is, and we're not doing it, we will do it in a week or so when the weather warms up. We will rent a roller that vibrates, and this will be rolled and vibrated and rolled to flatten it. The guy who was here told us that one of the things we should do is spray some diesel in it, and it tends to loosen it up, and then when the diesel evaporates, it kind of makes it a bit more sticky, I guess, and helps to bind this surface down, because we've got crushed concrete underneath this. And then eventually, when we finish work, to finish it off, we'll put some pebble ash, pea shingle rather, on top of it and roll that on to give it a better finish, a nicer finish, but I'm not going to bother with that till we finish all the work around here. Right, so my Mercedes is, oh God, I shouldn't say, it's hard to say this, it's going alright. It's going alright at the moment, and it's going to be the next car that I'm going to clean up. Just parked it here out of the way, but next week I'm going to get this out and give it a sort of a good valet, clean all the outside and the inside. We're actually planning to clean the engine bay as well. We bought some stuff to clean it with. We haven't had a chance to do it yet when we're having all the problems with the electrical problems we had and one thing and another. We had a lot of problems with it, and I had it serviced in the end, and it seems to be going fine. But anyway, it's due for a really big clean up, and clean the inside out again, give it a really good valet, and bring it back to sort of some pristine condition. Sort of just been sitting around here. I've used it a bit, and all these wheels need cleaning up. I had the real wheels actually refurbished a couple of years ago. Eventually they're going to be needing to be done again. Whether you can actually buy a decent second-hand set, I don't suppose you can get a new set obviously now, but I'll just keep getting them refurbished, I guess. And then I had some work done on that bumper, didn't I, where it had a few little bangs in it. So it's not too bad at the moment, not too bad. Well, my ATV's a bit muddy from all the work it's been doing in the last few weeks in the field and in the wood and one thing and another. That needs a good bit of clean up as well. As I said before, I've had this thing for 25 years or more now, and it's been totally abused, and it's absolutely brilliant. Great. So this was a kind of cumbersome system in a way, especially when they didn't have computer systems in those days as they do now. So they then scrapped the system and went on to a constant four-wheel drive system that changed the percentage of the ratio of power between front and back, or whatever, wheel to wheel, as they do now. So this system had a lot of problems, but the result was that whilst they sold a lot of them, especially in the United States, I think, not many survived because the problems that came were big, and Mercedes did produce a revised transfer box, and that was what was failing, but they were expensive. Now I bought one and I fitted it, and I've had problems since, but not with the box, hopefully. The problems I've had have been with the accumulator that was building up the pressure to work the system, and with sensors and everything. At the moment it's working really well. Well, I shouldn't say that. I always say these things, and then it fails. The rest of the car really have been problems over the years that have been due to either just age or lack of use. This car is so solid and seems to, and feels so well built. It drives wonderfully. It's as tight as anything. I mean, it feels like you're in a new car, really. The seats are still firm. The steering is still firm. The responses on the pedals are firm and immediate. Everything about it feels good. It doesn't rattle. It's a lovely car, and they are still popular. Though obviously, like all cars, they rot. Though this one has been fairly good. I've only done a minimal amount of body work on it, and though it's been outside in all weathers, for all the time I had it, it's shown very little corrosion. Just minor work, really. Now, you know, it always amazes me because I hear stories, and we all do, about cars and they all rot, and then you get one that doesn't, and you think, well, what was special about my car? You know, was it made on a day that they just happened to manage to get it through the paint shops and everything with, you know, with a lot of rust already on the metal? But I don't know. But anyway, this one has been pretty good. I had problems with, I had the cruise control replaced at one point, and I've had a new single, the wiper blades, a single one, that's been replaced. That motor burnt out. I think that's quite a common fault because there's such a heavy wiper blade. And I've had the wipers from the lights, headlights, that clean the headlights, the wipers there. Those motors burn out quite regularly. I've had about 3 of those because they're down at the front of the car, and they obviously get water in them, I suspect, and they always seem to be burning out. In actual fact, that's a requirement now on the MOT, so that, you know, these sort of things, you have to have them working, otherwise your car won't pass the MOT anyway. Which is an added problem to all these old cars, because as they become more difficult to repair or more expensive, people just won't do it, and cars will just get scrapped for more and more reasons now. So I mean, you'll scrap a car because the wipers don't work. I mean, the wipers on the lights, not the wipers on the windscreen. And actually, that's another thing that this car, I'm told, is a common fault, and I've got it, and that's this lamination that's coming down on the side of the screens. It's on both sides. It's been really the same for a number of years now. It hasn't got any worse, and I haven't bothered about it. It's only on the edges. But it's certainly a lovely car, and it's funny, when you've had a car this long, 20 years, you've been driving it about, you get so used to it. It's like an old friend, really. And even though this car is a left-hand drive, which is the wrong side of the car for England, I've got so many, or I've driven so many left-hand drive cars in England, that I feel more comfortable actually on the left-hand side than I do on the right. There have been times when I think about selling this car, but frankly, I pull away from the brink, as it were, and I keep it, and I know really that I shouldn't sell it now. I've had it too long, and I've spent too much money on it, and it is really quite a rare car. There are very few left, certainly in the UK, of these original 4MATICs on the road, because they didn't really sell them. I understood they didn't convert the 4MATIC to left-hand drive, to right-hand drive for the UK, because of problems with the suspension and everything. It's got a different suspension on it, and of course it's got drive shafts in the front, or a drive shaft to the front. But I believe that there was some. I'm sure I've seen some. So that's probably not true. But I don't believe that there are many left, and if they are, they may not be as in good condition as this one. Oh, that's a blow. That road's closed. Roadworks going on here, and of course when they close a road such as that, the diversion is a major operation. failing on the car, and it is a big failing now. Really, is the fuel consumption. Fuel consumption is awful on this car. It's the worst that I've any of my car. In fact, my Dodge, my 1947 Dodge, which has got a similar size engine actually. Well, it's a bit bigger. It's 3.5 litre, I think, 3.8 litre. Straight six. That is a I say much better. It is better on fuel. This car, around the town, I get less than 20, I think, to the gallon. 20 miles to the gallon, and on a run, if I'm careful, I might get 21 or 22. So, though I drive it around the town a bit, or a lot, but it is really awful on fuel. You know, I've read reports on it, and a lot of it's put down to the fact that the car is heavier than the one that hasn't got 4MATIC. It is a heavier vehicle, and also it's got well, it doesn't really drive the front wheel, so it's only driving the rear wheels. So it's no different to a standard car. I don't know. I think just the engine is just simply designed from a period when fuel consumption was not a major problem. Gearbox is lovely, 5-speed automatic. I was going to say that it's still working well it should be, but when the car had done about 40,000 miles and I had the major problem with the transfer box, and I had a new one fitted, I got them to recondition the automatic box while they were dealing with it all. I don't know why there was nothing wrong with it, and whether they actually did anything I don't know. They charged me, but so since then, you know, it's done about 60,000 miles, but for an automatic 5-speed automatic of that type, it's they should really go on almost the life of the car if you look after them. I've had few problems with automatic gearboxes over the years. I have had some, but not that many. So that's the story of my Mercedes, and I just keep it going. Really, I'm going to give it a bit of a valet as soon as the weather dries out, maybe next week. Clean the inside again, though it's not too bad, and clean the outside, and just generally continue my ongoing project of keeping this car driving as much as I can, and is good condition and fully working as I can. Now at the moment, apart from one half of the heated seat, which is not working, the rest of the car, oh, there I am saying this again, the rest of the car is working well. Okay, there we are. Well, the Aventine is really dirty. The Ami at least is clean now, and it's ready for this event on Sunday, so that's good news. I've still got to clean the inside a bit and give it a last minute clean, which I'll do on Sunday when I take it out. Now I'm trying to burn some rubbish. Let's have a look, see if the fire's going. Well, the fire's crackling away. These little twigs here with the bits of tape on them are the willows that we've planted. They're offcuts where we had to log a great big willow tree we cut down, and where there were new growth sprouting out the side, we cut them into slivers, and we buried the piece of log with the new growth coming out. So we've probably done about 30 of those here in the wood, and hopefully they'll eventually grow into willow trees. Getting rid of the rubbish and all this wire is a nightmare. There's so much of it. There's a load at the front gate. You got that to do, haven't you? Yeah. Yeah, it's going well at the moment, isn't it?
In the middle of it should be dry.
Well, once you've got enough fire going, it dries it out enough anyway. You'll be alright. It'd be just good if we can get the metal extracted, get a shot of that. So the problem is that we've got all this metal, the old wire from the old fence tangled up. We can't untangle it, so we want to burn all the wood, and then we can pull out the metal and get rid of it and clear this area up. Then we go over it with a magnet, pick up any screws and nails that are still there, and then try and clean the area completely. These two trees here are self-seeded, well, seeded by birds, I guess. Well, they're both walnut trees. The heat that it gives off. So I say, once you get the that like that, all that wood will just burn now. Hopefully most of that will go if there's enough close together. So Tom's going to bring the digger up here, so we can try and push this lot together as it burns. The objective really here is to burn all this wood and be left with just the metal. And we can crush all the metal into some sort of compressed piece of lump of metal, a bit of a metal ball, so we can put it in a skip or something. piece certainly doesn't want to go. That's better. This is the trouble, getting tangled. Now he's got all the wire tangled up. Another horrible sight here is all the trenches we've had to dig to run this cable here. There's trenches all over the place. Kind of, I know it's all going to go back in the end and everything will grow, but kind of upset you to see it all. Trench running all the way through the woods, goes right through, back up to the other side. You can see it there. Runs across there, actually it's coming from that post, so the cable's going to run down that post because that's somebody else's land over there, so it'll run down underground and then it's going to go through, meet up with another cable that's coming. Well, it's this cable here that's going to be running in there, but there's another one that goes over and they join up. Anyway, I'll be glad when it's done and we've pulled all the earth back down into that trench. You're just showing off now.
Easier when it's got handles.
Yes. Right, well the Volvo's still sitting here. I haven't really done anything with it since before I went to Canada because it stopped working and then it started. What I'm going to do is give it a try now. Right. No, there you go, now it won't start. It's not starting now again. So what we're going to do now is to fit the fuel pump. So I've got a new fuel pump, and we'll fit it. It's quite a bit involved because we have to take a lot of the back of the car out apparently. And then I had to buy this tool. and this is the tool that you need to tighten the top of the fuel tank access, I guess. So that is like a giant spanner. It's a joke really, isn't it? It's about 50 quid. But once I've used it, I won't need it again. I'll sell it back on eBay, see if I can get half my money back on it. Be worth it to me, and a bargain for somebody who just wants to use it. So that's what we'll do with that, hopefully. So I think the next step is, yes, we will fit a new fuel pump, but we're also going to get the, Tom's going to bring the reader in that he had, the engine reader, and we'll read and see what fault it's coming up with at the moment with this fact that it's not running. I mean, it ran for a bit, then it didn't. So I mean, we've all come up with all sorts of ideas, whether it's a broken cable, whether it's a fuel pump, whether it's the injectors, and nobody really knows. And all the options and ideas that I've heard that have been put forward as to why it's got this intermittent fault, they all sound feasible, plausible. So all we can do now is a process of elimination. And as I have the pump, that's the first thing we'll eliminate, whether it's the pump. See what happens. It's a pity because I like this car. It's in good condition other than that, and I would be using it a lot. So we'll see what happens. I hope I can get it fixed. Otherwise, I'm going to have to just get rid of it, I guess. Right, well, the Aventine seems to be going okay now, apart from the problem here with the sat navigation that's decided to call it a day. Let's just park this up. I love these doors. They're really good. They're clever design.